So this lecture is on Chapter 9, the section on the consequences of prejudice. We've had a few other lectures on the concept of prejudice, but this one is specifically on the consequences of that. And just to start, a quote I really like is, "Where prejudice exists, it always discolors our thoughts." So first, let's define prejudice. I think we've done that in a couple other lectures also, but let's define it again just as a reminder. Prejudice is an attitude, a combination of feelings, inclinations to act, and beliefs, which you can see that in the left, that pretty much everything in psychology is based on how your thoughts and behaviors, your feelings, or your emotions are related. So prejudice is part of this. It's a relationship between your thoughts and the way you feel and the way you behave. A prejudiced person may feel dislike toward those different from themselves and behave toward them in a discriminatory manner, believing them ignorant and dangerous. Prejudice involves preconceived judgments, such as judging someone before we know them, and these prejudgments guide our attention and our memories. Let's look further at the concept of how the prejudice guides our attention and our memories. Whenever a group member behaves as expected, we duly note the fact, in other words, we pay attention, that our prior belief is confirmed. This is known as a self-perpetuating belief. Self-perpetuating is defined as of a kind that causes or promotes indefinite continuation or renewal of itself or oneself. So when we see a member of a certain group, such as a businessman, we expect them to behave in a certain way, and when they do, we pay attention, and our belief of what we expected is confirmed. So that perpetuates our belief and allows it to continue and renew. So let's look at memory. We looked at attention. Let's look at memory. After we judge someone as belonging to a certain category, such as a particular race or sex, our memory for it later shifts toward the features we associate with that category. So when we judge someone to be a particular trait of a certain race, then our memory of that particular race we associate with that category, and that can perpetuate itself also. I believe that's similar to stereotyping, which a stereotype is a widely held but oversimplified and generalized belief or idea about a particular group of people or things. Some examples are thinking that all Asian people are good at math, all Americans are arrogant, or all lawyers are dishonest. So these are some possible consequences of being a victim of prejudice. There's a lot of effects if we're a victim of someone being prejudiced against us. Cognitive changes. We could have changes in our beliefs, think we have a negative future, negative feelings. We could feel fear or shame, experience a loss of self-esteem and a desire for self-destruction. Behavioral changes. Our social habits may change. We're no longer able to make decisions as well. There may even be physical symptoms such as trembling or sweating or vomiting, or chronic physical symptoms such as loss of appetite or not being able to sleep, having nightmares. So there's so many effects of being victimized or being a victim of prejudice. It can really change the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave. Going back to the triangle we looked at the beginning, it can affect all those things. So let's look at the definition of stereotype threat. An apprehension that one will be evaluated based on a negative stereotype leads to diminished performance. So simply the fear that we're going to be evaluated based on a group we're in, especially a negative stereotype, leads to our not being able to perform as well. If you look to the right, again, it defines stereotype threat. It says occurs when members of a group fear that their actions may reinforce a stereotype that's already been made about their social group. That can create stress, social anxiety, abandoning interests and passions for the fear that you're going to fulfill that stereotype. Can create cognitive or thought overload, which is caused by excessive performance self-monitoring. You're so aware of watching yourself that you can't perform as well. And a self-fulfilling prophecy, which we'll define self-fulfilling prophecy in the next slide. Some examples are women in STEM, which if you're not familiar with STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. So often there's a stereotype that women are not as good at those things. Women in leadership positions, also there's a stereotype that women can't be leaders, that that's just for men. Immigrants might be afraid of confirming prejudices. Male teachers might be self-conscious of parents' mistrust. Just as we often think of leaders as male, we sometimes think of teachers as being female. So a male teacher may fear mistrust. And working class kids at a university. If we often think of people at a university as being wealthy, then working class kids there may feel like they're being evaluated based on a certain stereotype. So I said we would go to self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's look at what that is. Self-fulfilling prophecy is a term used to describe a prediction that causes itself to become true. Therefore, the process by which a person's expectations about someone can lead to that someone behaving in ways that confirm the expectations. So essentially, if we believe something about a certain group, let's go back to an example we had, if we believe that women can't be effective leaders, then just by expecting that, we may recognize the factors that lead us to confirm those expectations because we're looking to confirm it. So it leads to them behaving in a way that confirms it and us confirming that stereotype or that prejudice. And again, going back to the beginning, self-perpetuates. It continues for us to have that prejudice. So all of that's been kind of some negative news on how prejudice definitely affects us and how the victims of prejudice can feel. Well, let's look at the good news. The good news is our stereotypes mostly reflect reality. Obviously, sometimes they do distort reality and they don't make sense and they're not true, but they found that actually they often do reflect reality. And people often evaluate individuals more positively than the individual's group. I believe this is why personally getting to know someone who is different from ourselves is a good way to reduce stereotyping and prejudice. And I know we had another slide, I believe, on how to reduce, or another PowerPoint on how to reduce stereotyping and prejudice. And I think this is a great way when you get to know someone personally in a certain group. You begin to see that they probably don't really fit the stereotype or prejudice you had against them. Great way to reduce that. I think that's it. Thank you for listening and let me know if you have any questions.